Tune in live, see the show. Golden Hurricane gonna blow. Tulsa sports got the flow. Pop's the host, you gotta know.
Yo, what's up, everyone? Welcome in. It's another edition of Rain and Cane. Thank you for tuning in. Remember to hit that subscribe button on the channel and help support this show as we continue to move forward and as we inch closer to football season. Just a few days away from fall camp opening up, a couple of days away from the American Athletic Conference Media Days, which we'll talk about coming up here in just a little bit. We got a good show for you coming your way, live from the House of Pop, also from Done So Done Media Productions here, straight out of Coweta, USA. Man, there's been a lot going on since the last time that we actually had a chance to catch up. Let's see, Tulsa's introduced a new athletic director. We gave a basic farewell to Rick Dixon. There were a couple of really big donations that happened for the university as well that were earmarked towards athletics. One of those in the announcement is new, and there's some restrictions that will be put on the amount of money for the endowment. Rules that there's only so much that you can dip into per year. I want to do some more on that as we get closer to football on one of these weeknight shows where you really can dive into the topic and give you more in depth of what that actually means moving forward for the university. The other $8 million donation, as far as I know, the only thing that's new is just the announcement. That's one that's kind of been there for a while. So just the announcement was made, but still really good news for the university and for the athletic department as well, with two really big stories. The other big story, of course, is Justin Moore, the new AD. Introductory press conference, and I'd love to hear from you guys on what your opinions were on Justin, on his message, what you're looking forward to the most. There are a ton of questions I know that everyone has, and you want them answered right now. The problem is, and I thought that Justin did a really good job of explaining that that's not really the way that this is going to operate right now. He's going to take a certain amount of time to get settled, to really kind of sit back and listen and take in everything of how the athletic department operates now. I think that's the best approach that you can have virtually in almost any job. I mean, how many of us have had bosses that just don't want to listen, period, that come in and want to just change everything right away without having a true understanding of how things actually operate and not having a clear-cut direction other than the only thing that they know, when they might not even know the inner workings of the business that they're stepping into. You know, Justin, that's not at least his verbal approach. And I applaud that. He's got a lot of work ahead of him. And I think he understands that, but he may not really know until he gets a few weeks and a few months in on the job. His pedigree is great. I think his background is everything that you would want in today's version of an athletic director, someone that has had a hands-on approach from being the director of football ops to then basically running the football program from an administrative side at one of the largest athletic departments in the country at Texas A&M. I think skills like that, along with his financial background, even though he will tell you, hey man, I was on that job like 2 weeks and I hated it. It just wasn't for me. But he's really going to have to get into the weeds on the fundraising side, as is every athletic director across the country, but it's going to be highlighted even more at a place like the University of Tulsa. I'm excited to see what he can bring. I think he's got a great attitude. I like when I asked him a question and I specifically asked him this question during the press conference. I asked him about culture. That is such a buzzword that's going around right now, around sports and around life in general. And half the people that use that term and ask that question have no concept of what culture even means. So I asked him, I said, what is your definition of
You mentioned culture. What's your definition of culture and the culture that you've come from in the past? What type of culture has that been for you to thrive in, and how do you translate that over to here?
Yeah, I think culture is the daily habits of your organization. It's what you do and how you do it. And I think all good cultures are based on a couple things. You need to have a clearly defined mission, vision, and values of what your organization is going to be about and the standards of how you will operate. And then as a leader of that department, you've got to make sure that your words and the actions of what you promote align. And then when things don't match up to the standards of what you've set, then you have to correct those. And it's an ongoing process that is a living, breathing thing that you have to work at every day. And as the leader of the department, that's a huge part of my job. But it will be something that we will talk about a lot. I don't think you can over communicate that enough. And you will hear that a lot. We will do a good job of clearly defining that. I want to get in, learn the operations, learn the people. I want the organization to be a part of that process as we develop those. And then we will do a good job of rolling that out to the community so everybody knows kind of what our direction is.
How do you navigate the landscape that's happening right now with the great unknown? Seems like we could walk out of this room and there's another change that's happening. So how do you go about that?
Yeah, I would say the only certainty is nobody knows what's coming. And I was actually fortunate at my time at A&M, after our athletics director left to go to Ohio State, I was sitting in the SEC athletic director meetings with Commissioner Sankey when they were talking about settling the House case. And so I was a part of those conversations. So I understand that side of it as well, who's kind of driving it. And I would say even they don't know what it's going to be. And what I told President Carson in our interview was, I think we have to control what we can control. And all we can do is try to make Tulsa athletics the best program that we can make it, so that when whatever happens, we're in the best position possible to have as many choices as we can have. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to try to build our athletics program to be as good as it can be. And then obviously is my job, as we learn new bits and pieces of information, it's forecasting and making decisions and planning ahead of what does this mean? What could this possibly mean? Because I do think the people that can adapt in the short term are going to be the organizations that are most successful.
Don't cut corners. You do everything that is within your ability to make sure that you're leaving a positive impact on those that are around you and help bring everyone together that's trying to reach the same common goal. Organizations sometimes talk about these great goals that they have, and that's fine. Everyone should have goals. But very rarely do you have an organization from top to bottom where everyone's on the same page. I don't know if I've seen one yet, honestly, especially in big organizations. Everyone's got their own ideas, and they're always different. And then they will go out of their way to make sure that their idea gets put in place while they're trying to either, cut someone's legs out from underneath them whose ideas that they think are dumb. I don't think that that's really going to fly at all with him. And all of this is just going off of what he said right now. But I asked him that culture question for a reason, because I think that's one of the more important things that needs to happen in the first 3, 4, 5, 6 months outside of having a successful football season, because we know how much that impacts the university financially. Is he's got to find a way to remember what not only made himself successful, but he's had an eye on one of the biggest operations in college sports there in College Station. And if he can tap into some of that and be able to put his own twist on it at a much smaller place like the University of Tulsa, the sky's the limit. And again, he's got his work cut out for him. Seems like a great dude, and I can't wait to get to know him a little bit more as we move throughout the football season. All right, before we move on to the college football video game that was released earlier this week, just want to go through with you guys again. Send any suggestions that you have. My email is always open at poplandshow@gmail.com. You can find me on X at any point in time as well. Feel free. Tell me what you want to hear. Tell me what you want to see on this show, and we'll try to make that happen. Just some basic ideas that I want to try to accomplish here as we go through the season, or before we get to the season opener, is to sit down and have conversations with how the entire operation works. Nick, with football equipment, I think has one of the more fascinating jobs, and maybe one of the toughest jobs of anyone within the athletic department. And to find out what it takes to go through a football season, not just regular season, but fall camp as well, and really what his day-to-day life is like, and the people that work underneath Nick that really don't get as much praise as they deserve to make everything work on game day. There's a ton of work that goes into everything to make it actually happen once we get to Saturdays in the fall. Robbie is another guy that I would love to sit down and have a conversation with about what actually a director of football ops does, and the type of stress that he has on his life on a daily basis. There's a ton of great people within the athletic department, even outside of football, that really do not get to tell their stories, and I hope to be able to do that here on this version of the podcast. Quickly, I do want to give a shout out to Inside Tulsa Sports. Chris Harmon has reached out, and we're going to go through and do some recruiting updates, because recruiting is at a level right now for TU that it has not been in a long time, maybe ever. Absolutely on fire. My buddy Colin Kennedy from 247 had even sent a tweet a couple of weeks ago over the holiday weekend about Tulsa was absolutely crushing it in recruiting and look for more signings, and they've done that as they're trying to round out this 2025 class. So we'll check in with Harmon, get an update, and find out a little bit more. Might even reach out to some of these guys and see if they want to come on and join us to learn a little bit more about them as they have their commitment to the University of Tulsa. But also from Inside Tulsa Sports, Larry Lewis's position breakdown that he had. Wide receiver is a group that I think has a ton of pressure on them this year, and they have to be able to perform if Tulsa wants to be successful. Guys like Cam Benjamin, we know that his story, we know what he's been able to accomplish and turn himself into, not only on the football field, but off of the football field, and the terrific young man that he is. But I think one of the more intriguing stories going into this year, not just transfers in from other programs like UTEP and Purdue and all the young guys that are there, but how about Braylon Presley? I'm going to read you this from Larry's story that was a quote from Kevin Wilson. And I can't wait to get to Media Day to talk to Braylon a little bit more about this. And Coach Wilson said, quote, I talk to him quite a bit because I worry about the stress that he puts himself under, the expectation that you're not doing as well as you'd like to. I want to make sure that he stays in a mental good sweet spot. And I think he is, but you worry. In high school, he scored a touchdown about every time he touched the ball. I can attest to that. I called several Bixby games, and you could almost say touchdown as soon as he touched the ball, and you'd be correct about 75% of the time. He went to Okie State, according to Wilson, and he does okay, not great. And he comes here in his first year and does okay, not great. I just don't want him to get down on himself and doubt himself. Is that something that Braylon has had trouble with in the past? He's got an infectious smile. He's a really, really good young man. Guys love being around him. He's fun to talk to. You would never really know if he got down on himself. Now, I'm not around him all the time. I'm just basing this off of what I see throughout the course of the football season. So I'm going to ask Braylon, is this something that you had a problem with? Did you start to doubt yourself? What was your low point last year? How much did that affect your level of play outside of the fact that they had to talk you into going to the eye doctor so you could get contacts, for crying out loud? Very interesting comments from Kevin Wilson in that piece that Larry had on Inside Tulsa Sports. There's more there to it. I'm going to follow up on that with not only Braylon, but with Kevin Wilson as well. Maybe he'll get some questions about that at the American Athletic Conference Media Day coming up next week, which we'll have a recap of. And also general business from the conference. There's a lot going on in the college football landscape. New commissioner. He'll probably have his own ideas about how to get the American out in front of as many eyeballs as possible and also get outside of the box. I think it takes a commissioner almost in the same way that Brett Yormark is right now. Outside of the box is such a token phrase right now. You need someone that's going to be aggressive. And I hope that that is the case for the American, the way that the Big 12 has been able to be successful so far with that type of attitude. All right, well, the big story this week around the nation outside of SEC Media Day has been the release of College Sports or College Football 25, which is the first time that we've had the college football game on any type of gaming system in almost an entire decade. And this has been much hyped. We've been waiting on this thing for 3 or 4 years. And as someone that has not had a gaming system technically since I had a PS2, I mean, we're a Switch family now because, you know, got to get our Dreamlight Valley in, got to get some other games in. The kiddo loves it. And I might play a little MLB Show every now and then. Unfortunately, college football game's not going to be released on Nintendo Switch. And your boy here doesn't have 500 extra bucks to go buy a PS5 or even want to think about buying an Xbox. So I'm on the outside looking in, but I got to say, as someone that played that game a lot while I was growing up, and every version of it, right, all the way back to Bill Walsh's College Football on Sega Genesis to, I mean, heck, Super Tecmo Bowl on Nintendo system and Super Nintendo, you got to understand that this may not mean a lot to you if you are of a particular age and you're watching this, but someone that is in my age range, which is, oh my gosh, it's approaching middle 40s. That just hit me. But someone that's in his middle 40s that grew up with this in gaming systems, it had a significant impact on me as just a fan of sports, whether that be through the NFL and the Madden games, or like I just brought up, Bill Walsh in college football or college football's national championship. It helped ingrain a little bit of a sports fan in me at a particular age. And we've had an entire section of our youth now that hasn't had this game to play. You've been hanging on to that version of 2014 for so long. So all of the hype leading up to this is you had to wonder, because it's an EA product and Madden takes a beating every single year from gamers. Said, you guys keep talking about that you're going to have these fixes to the game, and we still continue to have the same problem. So a lot of people were coming into this with some questions. How is this going to look? How is the presentation going to be? And so far through the first week, and we'll get into some of the numbers here in a second, it's been an absolute game changer in the terms of just sports games. And you also start to realize just how much that you've missed this thing. I have had no desire whatsoever to even jump back into the gaming world. And I have to admit, I've had a little bit of FOMO just watching some of the clips on social media all week long, seeing people go through dynasty modes and the things that you can do on this game now, where you can text recruits. You can virtually do everything that's happening right now in college football on the video game system itself. So if you got the early release, props to you. I know that by the time that you see this, the hard copy version will be out. Well, there's an out of context, the hard version. The hard copy will be out, and a lot of people probably lined up to get that today. So on Monday, I had the opportunity to go over and actually watch some of the Tulsa players play the game there at Chapman on the 1-0 club level. And at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when this game was released, there were 600,000 people in the queue on EA Sports waiting to play this thing online. It dropped at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and they had that many people. I think at one point in time, it got up to over $700,000. And you start to do the math on this with what the game cost itself. Early release versions everywhere from $100 to $150. I saw KFC from Barstool was putting an estimate on this that Monday alone, EA Sports in the college football game was able to bring in over $70 million there's no telling what that's going to look like by the time that we get to the weekend with everyone that goes to get their physical copy from GameStop or Walmart. We had a conversation around the cubicle today because I don't have an office. They kicked me out of it, so I'm in a cubicle now. But it was Walmart doesn't stay open till midnight anymore, at least most of them. Target doesn't. Best Buy doesn't. I don't know if GameStop was doing anything or not for people to go get the game to have the physical copy at midnight, because 44% of GameStop's business is actually still selling physical copies. If you're planning on getting it, man, reach out. I want to hear what you're doing. I had a buddy of mine tonight, Tim, that had already marched to the national championship game using the University of Tulsa. They were the 2 seed. It looks really, really cool. And going over and watching the guys play, Gavin Potter, Bill Jackson, up at the 1-0 club level, it was fun, like seeing their excitement. And it took me directly back to the number of hours that I wasted playing this damn thing. And TU did it right because they brought in Raising Cane's and they looked like they were having a great time. So for those that don't know, I'm now working at News on 6 in the sports department. I have no idea what I'm doing. I hope to figure that out soon. But I was fortunate to go and watch them play and put together a little video here with Jason Malay, who's the Senior Associate AD of External Relations at TU. I had talked to Jason during the spring game about everything that went into making sure that they got everything perfect for the University of Tulsa. And we had an interesting conversation then. I grabbed him while we were upstairs, and here's that segment that I recorded earlier this week with Jason, just telling you how much goes into making that new EA Sports game for each individual university.
All right, Jason, the video game is here, and I know that there's a lot that went in behind the scenes just with the process of this across all the schools. But let's just talk from the University of Tulsa perspective and kind of walk me through the early stages of what this looked like to get this game to this point.
Yeah, it was over, I believe it was around 2 years ago right now. They asked, hey, can we get this photo pack from you of your stadium? And we ended up sending in somewhere over 1,100 photos from every corridor to different angles on the field to around the field. And then, you know, we've updated our facility since then with the blue padding and the scoreboard wrap and some other things. So we had to go back and reshoot some of them, get them updated again. Then it came, okay, what's your tradition? So the hurricane siren, which you're going to hear in the game, the hurricane flag's a big one. Some other of those traditions we have every day and every game, and really just started inserting those one at a time, and inserted the rivalry game versus OSU with the Turnpike Classic, and just kept giving them stuff. And the cool thing was they wanted more from every school, so we were able to keep adding and keep doing some fun stuff.
What was the communication process like during this when you know that you're going to have to send them updates of upgrades to the stadium, and then also their thirst for more? So communication between the two of you.
Yeah, you know, the team at EA Sports and they were fantastic to work with. They routinely said, hey, we're adding in this feature right now. Is there anything you want to add in? Or we're going to do, you know, mascots now. We're just going through a new mascot earlier this year, so that was obviously quick to get to them as soon as we had it and get going. But really, they would probably send out an email twice a month asking for updates or any new information. But anytime we had something, like when we updated the Turnpike Classic logo, got that over to them, they put it in, it was good to go.
I know a lot of people will focus on the work that EA put into designing the game, but did you have any idea the amount of work that you yourself and the university have to go through? You mentioned the 1,100 different sets of photos. I mean, is there an inch of the stadium that you did not take a picture of and send to them?
You know, we had one of our pathway students here, and when I told him about the project, he got excited. He went and he looked at it, and he's like, I can get all of this. It's going to take a couple weeks, but I'll get all of it and get it over to you. And that took him literally a couple weeks. Usually he'd go out in the morning for the best light and make sure nobody was on the field. But then going through, you know, the first round of the stadium, they sent us, there were a couple things that just needed updated and weren't quite right. So wanted to make sure those were on there, but constantly checking with, you know, people in our department, other people to make sure the stadium was looking right and our uniforms were right, which was definitely, you know, they have the alt uni, the homecoming red uni that we all love on there as an option. So making sure that's us included, and then the mascot and all of that. It was, like I said, it was about a 2-year process, and obviously wasn't working on it every day, but there was a lot of work that went back and forth.
How much of this were you sworn to secrecy? With everyone wanting to see like what the renderings look like, did you have to keep a lot of this under wraps just with you and your staff?
We never shared anything externally. Like, even though it's fun to take a screenshot and send it to a friend who's a big EA sports junkie, just making sure you're not going to be the person who is the leak. So being a private university, that makes it a little easier, but there's definitely a lot of that.
All right, so now that it's here and you've had a chance to lay your eyes on it, did it live up to the expectations?
It surpassed the expectations for me. Just the detail, like the touchdown terrace, the people in the Case Athletic Complex, end zone, up on the second floor there watching the game. Just all the little details were so cool and really surpassed my expectations.
Jason looks awesome. Congrats, man.
Thank you.
11,000 separate images, pretty damn impressive. And from what I've seen so far, and you just got to see a little bit of it there, it looks like they did a really great job with being able to bring Chapman Stadium completely to life. By the way, shouts out to Ravi for getting me in the building. Also Jared for all of his hard work there in the SID office, making sure that we were able to bring that to you and give you kind of a behind the scenes look at the new release of the college football game. All right, coming up next week on Tuesday, University of Tulsa will be at the American Athletic Conference Media Days. It's a 2-day event that starts on Monday. There are festivities Monday and Tuesday, but most of the heavy lifting will take place on Tuesday. We'll kind of kick things off next week with an entire recap of the American Athletic Conference Media Days. I'm really looking forward to seeing what the overall topic is out of the American. We had an idea out of the Big 12 and especially out of the SEC. I think some of that same narrative will carry over, and there'll be some internal housekeeping notes that happen. The SEC signs with Apple and has iPads on the sidelines now. Big 12 has Windows-based. Which direction is the American going to go? Do they have a sponsor for the conference? And that's really what I'm more interested in anything else that can come out of the American outside of the business dealings in college football and how some of these teams plan to approach it and the individuality that comes with so many different teams that will be there in Arlington. But I want to see how the coaches are going to respond to the use of the technology on the sidelines now, because there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. And Lane Kiffin was talking about how he felt like at times that maybe it can be a little bit of a detriment to actually have video on the sidelines. I'll try to pull that clip after we see what Coach Wilson has to say and some of the other coaches from the American. Also the helmet communications that will be inside, what the philosophy is on that, and so much more. In attendance, I know Cam Benjamin will be down there as well, representing the University of Tulsa. Let me cheat real quick and look and see who else is going to be there for TU. I can't remember off the top of my head. Like I said, I know that Cam will be there. Coach Wilson, of course, as well. Also scheduled to be there for Tulsa. Oh, yeah, Anthony Watkins will be there as well. So Tulsa's bringing 2 offensive players down there to the American Athletic Conference Media Days. And we'll have an entire recap. We'll replay coaches. Whatever you guys want to hear, again, feel free to reach out to me, poplanshow@gmail.com. I'm always available on X or Twitter. You can hit me up there. You guys can make this your show as much as it is mine. So anything that you want to hear from the American, any specific questions, I'm not headed down there, but we'll cobble together all the video and all the different elements that come out of Media Days. That's next Tuesday. And then we'll start doing these more on a regular basis as we get closer to camp. First practice, by the way, July 29th. They meet the media, I believe, on Friday, August 1st. So we are just a few weeks away from the start of fall camp officially starting. Remember, Tulsa has the earlier game. That's why they're going to get started a little bit earlier than what they typically do here in the month of July, as we get set to open up what could be one of the more interesting college football seasons in the history of the sport. Not just in the American, but all across the landscape that is collegiate athletics. All right, thank you for tuning in. Remember, hit that subscribe button. Tell all your friends, even any sponsors that might be out there. We're looking. And thank you again, everyone, for tuning in here on Rain and Cane. This is a show that's strictly about the University of Tulsa for you, the fans. And we'll look forward to it next Tuesday as we recap American Athletic Conference Media Days.